We all have seen musicians in their videos, listened to their songs, and maybe even have seen them in a live show. But as artists, they often wonder if they can express themselves in other ways. Some try painting, others try writing or design, and quite a few give the acting a try. We're going to see what the critics said about the acting, also how the audience treat them, and of course, how much money they gross. I did not include cameos or roles as extras. I only include films where they have to represent a character within the plot. The idea is that you can create a list of movies to watch when you're bored, and if you've already seen them, well, you can share your opinion. Let's begin. Mick Jagger, singer of the Rolling Stones. Let's start with one of the Mick Jagger's most acclaimed performances. In Performance from 1970s, he plays an androgynous rock star who was once famous but has stepped away from fame and now lives in a decaying house, immersed in alcohol, substances, and women. I know what you're thinking. So he didn't have to act. Well, he receives the film's protagonist at his home after the guy took the life of a man, and will begin a twisted dynamic between these characters. What stood out about his performance is that, to some extent, it was hard to tell where Turner, his character, ended and Mick Jagger himself began. In the 70s, critics ripped it apart, but over time, the film became a cult classic, leading critics to change their minds with reviews like, "Jagger has a magnetic allure." Only the most die-hard Jagger fan seems to know this film because I couldn't find official box office info. The budget was just $1.5 million. The second is Ned Kelly from 1970, a biographical film about a famous Australian outlaw who fought against oppression and injustice during the British invasion, though others define him simply as a criminal accused of killing several police officers in 1878 massacre. And that's what the problem is. Mick isn't Australian. He is not an actor, and I don't think he has the look of a burly 1800 outlaw, as you can see. Mick Jagger said he did it because he was bored, as there was no tour, so he looked for something to do. And his wish was granted because he certainly wasn't bored during filming. He suffered an injury when a blank bullet shard flew backward and lodged his hand, requiring hospital extraction. That was the least of it. They had a terrible weather. A virus hit the production team. A fire destroyed some costumes. Another actor nearly died in a horse crash, and not even the director attended the premiere. A curious fact is that originally Sir Ian McKellen from The Lord of the Rings and Magneto was to star. Critics were quite divided, but overall neither the critics or the audiences supported this role. This film barely recovered half of its budget. FreeJack from 1992 is a science fiction film about a future where the super-rich can extend their lives indefinitely by transferring their minds into younger bodies. The catch is that these bodies are kidnapped from the past right before their death in order to not leave traces. Mick Jagger played one of these mercenary kidnappers. Though he is a cold and intimidating villain, he is also charismatic, methodical, and intelligent, and he pursues one of these escapees in this future, set in 2009, eventually developing a certain respect for the protagonist, played by Emilio Estevez. Why did Jagger take this role? They simply asked if he wanted to do it and gave him a week to decide, but as he had a couple of free months after a tour, he said yes. That's how Mick, when I'm bored I make a movie Jagger is. The general critical response wasn't negative, but it was described as an interesting experiment. Being Mick Jagger, he brought his brazen aura to the character, setting aside his acting limitations. The general public liked it, and I found it entertaining too. The film managed to recover its budget, though it wasn't a commercial success. Ben from 1997. In this film, he has a small role as a drag queen artist performing in a nightclub just before the mustache German regime. Believe me, I included it only because the transformation is shocking, as you can see, and according to my research, that's exactly what the producers wanted to portray with his character. Representing a persecuted and vulnerable community was such a contrast to his rockstar aura that critics loved it. His performance was praised for bringing energy, style, and sincerity. Originally, David Bowie was set to play this role. Of course, the film's protagonist hated the idea of seeing Jagger there, but changed his mind after seeing the result. Mick, of course, sings in the film. The song is called Streets of Berlin. By the way, Jagger donated his salary to organizations supporting victims of this community in the UK in 1997. The film has excellent reviews overall, 74% on Rotten Tomatoes, 7.1 on IMDb, and 76% approval on Google. It also recovered its budget at the box office, though it wasn't a commercial hit. The Man from Elysian Films from the 2001, a film about a disgraced novelist who became a high-end scorer for a wealthy woman, the wife of a world-class novelist. Mick plays the role of the owner of the score agency with an air of elegance, sophistication, and mystery. His character is calm and intelligently manipulative. He makes the scored world look like the haute couture. Some positive reviews said, "It's not just a reply. It's the way Mick Jagger delivers it, the way only Mick Jagger could deliver it." Another critical success for Jagger, even though the film received a lukewarm response and financial losses. And finally, The Burnt Orange Heresy from 2019, a crime thriller about a man hired to steal a piece of art from a reclusive and enigmatic artist. Mick plays a wealthy art collector who hires the protagonist for the theft. His character is cold, calculating, and manipulates people with his money to get what he wants. Jagger hadn't acted for 20 years until he returned with this 2019 film. From what I researched, no one had anything bad to say about Jagger. He was very humble with everyone on set. And why did he do this movie? Well, Jagger had to take a break for heart surgery, and since he was bored before the operation, he joined the film. Because Mick, I make a movie while waiting for a heart surgery, Jagger is like that. Critics said, "Surprisingly well and appropriately threateningly." I only saw good comments from audiences, 81% on Rotten Tomatoes, 6.1 on IMDb, and 54% on Google. Unfortunately, the film didn't recover its budget. And that's the end of Mick Jagger's film's career. Overall, quite positive. Let's move on to the next star. Björk. Does this girl even need an introduction? She is a very unique Icelandic singer with a raspy but soft and melodic voice and the look of an Asian pixie girl. Her first acting role was in the Juniper tree. The film is a medieval fantasy drama. Two sisters must flee their village after their mother is accused of witchcraft and executed. They manage to take refuge in the Icelandic forest in the cabin of a widower and his son. There, a dynamic unfolds that will reveal the truth. This film is loosely inspired by an 1812 Brothers Grimm tale. However, the original story is much darker, touching themes of cannibalism and abuse, while the film is more mysterious with touches of witchcraft and suspense. Björk only obtained the role because of her appearance and expressiveness. She had never acted before, and she was only about 20 years old when she acted the film. She said filming was very simple, comparing it to a student film. Perhaps the hardest part was the weather at the Seljalandsfoss waterfall, where the humidity affected the cameras. Critics generally said that Björk's charisma and presence greatly contributed to the ethereal atmosphere the story required, being able to combine the emotional depth and innocence her character needed. On Rotten Tomatoes, it has 100%, on IMDb 6.8, and it was even selected for the Sundance Film Festival. As for the audience, I think this comment says it all. Björk and witches? Sorry, I can't be objective. This film was before her solo singing debut, so it's one of those rarities from before she was famous. The film made good profits for an indie film, grossing over $1 million, though I don't know if it was because people started watching it out of curiosity after Björk became famous. The next is Dancer in the Dark from 20,000, where Björk stars in a dramatic musical about Selma, an immigrant mother working in a factory. For her, music is her only escape, but her life gets complicated when she starts to lose her sight. She must act quickly to try to save herself and her son, who could inherit the same condition. The director is the renowned Lars von Trier, known for his provocative and challenging style. Among his best-known works are Melancholia with Kirsten Dunst and the highly controversial Antichrist with Willem Dafoe. Does that mean Dancer in the Dark is experimental and unique? Of course it is, it's Björk. It's the kind of film that says, it's a co-production between, and I quote, Denmark, Germany, Netherlands, Italy, USA, UK, France, Sweden, Finland, Iceland, and Norway. And no, I'm not joking. Björk won at least 10 awards for this role as Best Actress, including the Palme d'Or at the Cannes Film Festival. The film is ranked 9th among the best musical films on Film Affinity. Despite this, Björk swore never to work again with Lars von Trier due to his abusive behavior. She said he forced her to repeat a take more than 100 times, humiliated her emotionally, and on several occasions, Björk collapsed on set from the pressure. With a budget of $20 million, it grossed $46 million, making it a commercial success. Throwing Restraint 9 from 2005. This movie will require a meta-analysis to discover this particular film.
Even though I've seen the movie, I'm not sure I'll be able to give you a summary of the plot. According to the author, it's a critique of self-imposed limitations explored through the ritual of Shintoism.
The film follows the entire ritual of two people getting married, but everything happens inside of a whaling ship. Hardly anyone speaks. It's just the camera moving through different sections of the ship, documenting the transformation of the two characters through this complicated Shinto ceremony, all surrounded by an hypnotic and mysterious atmosphere.
This is an independent film from the genre of surrealism. It's that kind of movie that when you finish watching it, you have to go to the Wikipedia to understand what it was all about, which I did. And that's how I found out that this is a series of films. This is the number 9. That it explored a religion, in this case, the Shintoism, and that the limitations are the ones that appear when you create art. That's why the name, Drawing Restrictions. The music was done by Björk, which is a plus.
Critics generally liked it. For example, it only cements Björk's status as an innovative artist. For the first time, I read reviews where critics were as confused as I was. Don't get me wrong, it's not bad, it's just slow and contemplative. As for the audience, it got 89% on Google reviews and 68% on Rotten Tomatoes. But I doubt that traditional audiences even knew this film existed. I think if you're a fan of Björk or the director, you could watch it without issues. Just watch it calmly with a tea or coffee. And if it's raining, even better. This film is so experimental that I couldn't find out how much it cost to make or how much it grossed. A complete mystery. But it is available on archive.org. And finally, The Northman from 2022. Without a doubt, the most commercial film she's been in, featuring Anya Taylor-Joy, Nicole Kidman, Ethan Hawke, and even Willem Dafoe. The film is about a very young heir to a Viking king who witnesses his uncle murder his father and kidnap his mother. He escapes and vows revenge, to return years later as a warrior to avenge his family, all with a visceral, suspenseful, and surreal atmosphere. Here, Björk's role is small. She plays an enigmatic being, a sorceress from Germanic pagan mythology called a seeress. After seeing what she's done, I don't think I have to tell you the role fit her perfectly, as you can see on the screen, and critics agree. As for the general audience, just look at the YouTube comments on Björk's scene to get an idea. One said, "To be fair, this might be the most normal thing Björk has ever worn, in her life. It was Björk herself who suggested the character shouldn't show her eyes, and Alexander Skarsgård described Björk as magical. Analyzing the reception of this film is complicated because it had great reviews, tons of hype on social media, but it was a box office flop. The reviews I read had both detractors and people who adore it. It grossed about $70 million against an estimated $90 million budget. Here is up to you to say what you thought if you saw it. Björk's filmography can be summed up as weird, successful, and unclassifiable. Let's move on to our last star. Michael Jackson. The king of pop did have cameos, 3 to be exact. One in Miss Castaway, another in Men in Black, and another as Captain A.O., but that wasn't for a traditional film. His first official acting experience was in The Wiz from 1978. Michael got into this film by proximity, you could say. The first link is that it's starring Diana Ross, whom, if you didn't know, Michael idolized and they were already friends. The second link is that the film was produced by Motown Records, the label Michael belonged to before going solo. Basically, the film is a musical version of The Wizard of Oz, but only with African-American actors. Unlike forced inclusion, in the 1970s this was influenced by the social changes happening in the United States that led to the blaxploitation film genre, where African Americans could be protagonists, not just fillers or criminals. Michael got the role of the Scarecrow, but this version wasn't like the original character. It was more youthful, innocent, and energetic. Clearly, there are many dance moves, singing, and playing an alter ego was something Michael remembered fondly. Now, the film was a financial flop. However, everyone agreed that the energy he brought made up his acting limitations, and together with Diana Ross, they were the highlights of the film. A curious fact is that the script was written by Joel Schumacher, director of Falling Down, 8mm, The Lost Boys, and Batman Forever. This experience will be crucial for Michael for several reasons. First, it allowed him to work with outstanding artists like Diana Ross and Richard Pryor. Additionally, he would connect with someone very important in his career, music producer Quincy Jones, who would produce 3 of his most successful albums, Off the Wall, Thriller, and Bad. Finally, filming forced him to move alone to New York at 19, which led to a period of personal growth. With a budget of $24 million, it grossed $21 million. However, over the years, a cult following has developed around this film among Michael's most devoted fans. The next was MoonWalker from 1988, totally starring Michael Jackson. Technically, this film has a unique narrative, made up of different segments that together form a story, mixed with musical numbers. This is known as an anthology. From dances in a 1930s gangster club, clay animation, a Grammy-winning music video, a very frenetic live performance, and even a hyper-futuristic robot with better visual effects than some Star Wars sequels. All that created outpouring was due to Michael's insistence on doing everything big. The opening sequence is an example reflecting his level of fame in 1988. The most memorable number is what became the official video for Smooth Criminal. A curious fact is that the outfit is inspired by one worn by Fred Astaire, and the video itself is a tribute to this dancer and actor, as you can see in the selected clips. Michael financed the film, believed to have a cost of about $20 million, just to maintain creative control and ensure it was made. So this film is described as a look into the psyche of this artist, who at the time had an stratospheric fame, having broken musical records that took years to be surpassed. Really a time capsule of that moment in Michael Jackson's life. Another weird fact is that the movie was not released in the US theaters, only in Latin America and Europe. It was precisely the anthology structure that led Warner Bros. To cancel the US theatrical release. For the audiences, it was a hit, 22 weeks at #1 on Billboard Video Chart, awarded by the RIAA for 800,000 copies sold, and multiple platinum certifications in the UK, Canada, and the US. Now, the critics destroyed it. They said it had no structure, that it was an egomaniacal project, presented him as a kind of a god, etc. However, his musical performance and special effects scenes were praised as very creative. Personally, I think it works as an anthology, and you'll probably want to add some songs to your playlist after watching it, including the Beatles' Come Together cover or the very rhythmic credits song. And if not, you can enjoy the dance with the spike, good special effects, or see the only Lancia Stratos Zero sports car ever produced. Another important fact is that the film even had its own video game of the same name for PC and consoles. It was produced by Sega, with whom Michael collaborated in several occasions. Michael's filmography was as unique as he was, but as we've seen, audiences generally liked his performances, or at least didn't generate negative comments.
So we reached the end of this video. I hope that at least helped you to create a list of movies to watch. Remember that you can support us by giving a like, subscribe, or share this video. If you end up watching any of the movies, you can share your thoughts in the comments. Also, if you agree with the critics, because now we know that the critics don't even watch the movies. I'm Raj, and I'll see you in the next re.mental video.